and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today, if you're watching along on the YouTube channel, you might notice that we are tucked away in the garage this week. It's been a really grim autumnal week with lots of rain and dark skies and everything. And thankfully I've not actually had to go out yet this week when I'm recording this, and it didn't seem fair to drag Peggy out in it just to record the podcast. So we're going to have a cosy little chat inside the garage today. I've even really leaned into it and got a cosy cardigan and autumnal colours out of the back of the wardrobe. So once you've committed to autumn, I think it's here. And that doesn't mean, however, that the classic car season is over. There's still lots of things that I'm going to this year, and stuff that I've been to that I've not had a chance to tell you about, which is what we're going to talk about today. Last week, as well as meeting one of Peggy's previous owners, I briefly mentioned, I think, that I was at Salon Prive at Blenheim Palace. It's a fantastic event that goes on for several days during the week. They have a big long concourse event with judging and group drives and things like that. And then on the Saturday they have Supercar Saturday and the club trophy. So lots of car clubs go along and put on big displays, and each car club has a car that is selected to be kind of the best club car by the club secretaries or members of the club that are there. And then also, if the manufacturer is represented there, then the manufacturer can make a choice of their favourite manufacturer's car as well. So it's a really nice way of kind of drawing some more people into those sorts of events, and kind of celebrating a bit more of a broader church than you might get in just your smaller concourse events that you see elsewhere. So the Saturday, if you're looking to kind of go along and check out what it's all about, is a really great place to start. And I'd never been to it, but was really grateful to be able to go along because of work. And that was all down to the fact that this year there is the 120th anniversary of Charles Rolls and Henry Royce meeting, and so as part of that celebration, the Great Court at Blenheim Palace was dedicated to all Rolls-Royce and Bentley vehicles, and so they hoped to get close to 120. I think we ended up with 80 in there in the end, and that almost filled it. So that was a fantastic thing to see, and a great backdrop for a vast range of cars. But for me, it was basically a great day out. Me and Peggy set off from here at around 6:30 in the morning to get down to Blenheim Palace for when it all opened up. It was a really nice drive down. The weather was quite good. It wasn't too hot. Roads were quite pleasant. And as you get closer and closer to Blenheim Palace, not only do the roads get a lot more scenic and more beautiful, but also with an event such as that on, the cars that you start seeing going around become quite interesting. And as you drive into Blenheim Palace, you do end up in this fantastic traffic jam of all of these brilliant cars that are going along. And so that was fantastic. Now, Peggy and I were just in the regular car parking for the day, but that did mean that we got to go in through the fantastic gates, get ourselves parked up, get set up, and then walk up to where the main event was. And the walk from the car park to where the rest of the event was happening was littered with fantastic cars. There was a beautiful kind of walk up towards Blenheim Palace, that the road was lined with Porsches all down one side and other really fantastic cars down the other. Got into kind of Blenheim Palace itself, and then into the Great Court that was gradually filling up with Rolls Royces and Bentleys, and yeah, just a vast array from really early Rolls Royces all the way through to very, very new Bentleys and Rolls Royces as well. A fantastic range of stuff, and it was great to kind of walk around and see so much different stuff represented in such small quarters with such a stunning backdrop. And so spent a good chunk of my morning there, and then had a brief kind of wander round some of the cars that were out on the fields. And I would say that lawn was absolutely chocker with vehicles. If you're into your like supercars or your luxury classic cars and things like that, it is an astounding event and huge numbers. I think cars wise, there's probably more cars there than you would see probably at the NEC. It was vast. I don't know how. I mean, I think I put stupid shoes on, to be honest, and my colleague managed to kind of absolutely speed run round all of the cars, but I didn't. I just kind of took an opportunity to kind of pop and see a couple of things that really stood out to me. There was a really beautiful, all these supercars, but there was a really beautiful little brown Fiat 500 that was parked quite up near the front that really caught my eye, that was quite well set out and looked lovely. And later I saw it kind of driving down the alleyway that was lined with Porsches, loaded up with 4 lads, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. It was a fantastic Lotus Cortina that ended up in the concourse later. It was a really lovely, unusual looking kind of, I think, 1950s sports car. Again, parked quite close to the entrances and stuff, and stood out as something quite different and lovely. And I had a great chat to the lady who was stood next to that about it, and some of the lovely experiences her and her husband had going out in it. There was some fantastic Porsches on display. I really love a car like that in a really unusual or bright, colourful livery, and a lot of those were present, which was a lot of fun. I think if you're going to have something like that, having a bit of fun with a livery or something like that is a great way to enjoy it. After a bit of a walk round and really not even scratching the surface of the vastness of it, just went on for miles and miles of cars, I popped back, had some lunch, and chatted to some more kind of Rolls Royce and Bentley owners before finally kind of making it into the South Lawns. And the South Lawns is where the kind of main, I guess, fancy luxury lifestyle stuff is all displayed, and there was some fantastic stalls. There was some great cars on display as well. Again, whilst they were celebrating the 120th anniversary of Rolls-Royce on the front, they were celebrating some Porsche anniversaries around the back there, so there was loads more Porsches. But whilst I was walking around all of these Porsches, if you've followed me over on Instagram, you might have noticed that what actually caught my eye was the electric Microlina, which is kind of the modern adaptation of a little Isetta BMW bubble car, and that was just fantastic to have a look round and get up close to, and just really stood out as something a little bit unusual in the vastness of it. But there were some really beautiful stalls. It was just so mind-blowing to be kind of surrounded by so much kind of grandeur and spectacle, and just a lot of automotive interest and passion for vehicles that I have admired from afar but never really got the opportunity to be as up close to. And I timed it pretty well in going round the South Lawns at that time, because by the time that I was thinking that I was a bit tired and could do with a little sit down, it was getting quite close to them announcing the winners of the club trophies and the manufacturers' trophies. So I managed to get myself a fantastic seat on the front row, wait while they got it all set up and sorted, and then got a great view of all of the cars that were going past. And in quite an unusual turn of events, it was the first year that they had an impossible task of choosing best in show, and they'd ended up choosing a best classic and a best more modern or future classic. And I could see why, because all of the cars that were going across the stage and receiving trophies as either club trophies or manufacturers' trophies were amazing. And again, huge levels of detail gone into them. And whilst it was a concourse event, it was a bit different to what was kind of happening in the week, in the fact that a lot of the cars that were going across the stage were used and regularly taken out, whereas sometimes your bigger concourse events, the cars are more kind of art pieces. And so having those cars going across and celebrated on the Saturday, as well as the stuff that had happened in the week, I think is a really nice balance of kind of representing two sides of automotive. And once that had all wrapped up, I did kind of a last wander round and look to see what was heading off. And it was a great time to kind of stand near the front of Blenheim and see some of the cars going down the roads to head out, because there was some fantastic noises coming from these cars as they were driving out and heading to the exits. I went and said goodbye to some people, grabbed my stuff, and then headed back to Peggy in the car park. Managed to sneak her a smidgen closer to Blenheim Palace to get some photos before enjoying a reasonably smooth drive home. And we had to stop for petrol on the way home, not that far from Bicester. And again, it was full of interesting cars on the way home, and that petrol station had a lot of interesting cars. But Peggy got a compliment from a gentleman that was pulling up, and there was some beautiful American muscle cars and a Lamborghini and all sorts in the forecourt with us. But Peggy got a nice compliment, which was quite sweet, and goes to show that sometimes a nice Morris Minor will stand out when surrounded by lots of other more unusual things. But yeah, all in all, it was a fantastic day, and I think if you're looking for something a little bit different, the Car Club Saturday and the Supercar Saturday elements of Salon Prive is something that kind of gives you a glimpse of some of the bigger concourse events, but also has a lot of cars that can be a bit more kind of relatable if you're into that sort of thing. Perhaps not kind of stuff that you'd have grown up with and be familiar with, but a beautiful spectacle nonetheless, and some stuff that you've never heard of or seen regardless. And of course, you never know, you might stumble across an absolutely beautiful brown Fiat 500 as well. But yeah, a completely mind-blowing experience to be able to go to something like that and to kind of have free rein to walk around and talk to people. So fantastic, and really looking forward to what we've got coming up. We've got, I think we're going to a steam fair, and obviously at the end of this month we've got Rustival, and that will just about round out this season that's rapidly coming towards an end. But it's been a busy one, and lots of new people have joined us, so thank you very much if you've come along in the last season to join us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it to come. But in the meantime, thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.